Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, day 2 of Big Ten Media Days, and to say it has been a whirlwind pace today would be a little bit of an understatement.
Yeah, lots of stuff going on, some stuff going on at the same time as other stuff, but we do what we can. We try our best. And sometimes, do we fall short? No, it's everybody else's fault.
The world has failed us in some ways, but in other ways, we have been able to overcome.
That's right, and that's a lot. It's overcome. But, you face a little adversity in the summer, sets you up for the season, but we will also face adversity covering games. But welcome, everybody. We have now finished talking with Ryan Day, talking with Julian Sand, and Jalen McLean, and Jeremiah Smith. I want to talk about Ryan Day here right now, and Tom, I want you to try to guess. So, Jeremiah Smith was having a conversation with Mickey Marotti, and Coach Mick said, "Hey, do you know who the toughest player on the team is?" And Jeremiah is like, thinking about it, is like, "Who?" And then Mick told him, and then when Ryan Day was told this story and told this answer, Day was like,
"Okay, well, I'm going to guess, and I don't think this is the same story, but I was in the back for Jeremiah and heard him talking about one thing, and he mentioned Brock Boyd.
Oh.
And in terms of Brock Boyd, well, you know what? We're going to save that for the Jeremiah Smith show, because you obviously are expecting a different answer. So why don't you tell me the answer?"
Quarterback Julian Sand.
Well, you know what? If that's true, that's potentially a really big development, because I know I was there when Jeremiah Smith was talking about him in some other contexts, and he talked about the fact that he is ready to run more. I think they've been training together during the off season, and it is very much, I think, an eye of the tiger situation where this is potentially a contract year for both of those guys. And I think both guys recognize that. Both guys recognize they weren't that far from winning it all last year, and you get a little bit close. You get yourself a little bit closer. You may get the team a little bit closer.
Well, and Mick has them training together, or doing the workouts together. In the weight room. So Julian obviously likes that because Jeremiah is an incredibly hard worker. So that was fun for him. But yeah, just the having that guy be, whether Mick is blowing somebody up or what, but it's like your quarterback being able to answer the call in those ways then allows for them to do things in other ways during the game when all of the stuff you're doing off of the field applies on the field. So I thought that was one interesting thing. The one thing that I was trying to find out, and it was almost impossible to get a question in, the offensive line. And where is everybody? Where's Austin Searveld? Where's Ian Moore? Tom, they hope to have that answer by about practice 9 or 10. So have enough information that either Ian Moore could do it, or Austin Searveld should do it, or Josh Padilla needs to play, or he said they're going to go with their best 5, and they need to know who that is by about practice 9 or 10, which is week 2 of practice, so that you can begin getting ready for game planning with your starting lineup.
And that's about the time that they typically will say they want to have a starting quarterback as well. And I get it. I understand. And I do think there is potentially some legitimate question here, because the fact that Josh Padilla wasn't practicing this spring means you really have not seen the different permutations of this line working together in a full practice setup. There's certain stuff they can do this time of year, but there's other stuff they're limited and they can't do. And so you really haven't seen this in an 11-on-11 situation. So I get it, and I think there probably is a legitimate question at that. There are sometimes when we will be at Big Ten Media Days and they'll say, well, the quarterback competition's still an open question. It's like, is it really? Because can I bet on one of the outcomes? Because I think I know that you're going to have this outcome and you're going to be able to announce it on about the Tuesday of the 3rd week. I bet I can guess that. This one feels like a little bit more of a legitimate question.
Yeah, and rarely has the offensive line that has been the number one offensive line in the spring been the exact offensive line over the past few years in fall camp. And so this one, it's not a huge surprise. It's kind of, we've all been fantasy booking this thing, but there wasn't enough evidence in the spring when Searveld and Philip Daniels are both out for 2 weeks, and Ian Moore, he played, but is one spring camp enough to let you know that he's ready to go? Not when there are other options.
Well, this is one of those. Would you bet on it? Okay, would you bet your house on it? Like, there's a lot more than just a house at stake with this Ohio State football season, and really every Ohio State football season. Because if you go out in the first round of the playoff, well, that's a very different kind of off season for coaches, players, program, donors, everything, than if you win the national championship. And so there is a lot at stake this year. And you look at the schedule, and there's a lot at stake very early in this season, and there's a lot at stake in the middle part of the season. You don't have the luxury of, well, we'll figure it out. You know, remember when Michigan had the quarterback battle? It's like, well, we'll have one guy start one game and one guy start the second game, and then we'll sort of figure it out from there. They don't have the luxury of that this year.
No, and you mentioned the schedule. He said this schedule is going to get them used to playing and accustomed to playing and comfortable playing into the fourth quarter in the playoffs should they win these games, these regular season games. And I believe there's an Iowa writer here asking, Ryan, what do you remember about that 2017 game in Iowa City? And his quote was like, I've wiped that from my mind.
He said, quote, that was really bad. And he said, quote, I try not to remember that game. Thanks for bringing it up. Tony, I don't think he really meant that last part.
No, and the good news is he knows what to expect there. He knows that anything can happen and most of it is bad. But also, that's just one of the games. There's Texas, there's Indiana, USC. So, and that's just the road games.
Well, and Jeremiah Smith, when he was listing some of their tough road games, the first three games he listed were Texas, Indiana, and Nebraska. And I thought,
interesting.
I don't think that would be the third game that most people would list. But, you know, even the potentially fifth toughest road game they have this year is no joke. This is a very, very challenging schedule, and that doesn't include the home games against Michigan and Oregon.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're going to be well prepared for the playoffs and operating in those final moments that maybe didn't go so well last year for them. And even Julian, I think Julian Sain talked a little bit about how it was that last year's schedule is easier. He's like, well, let's just say what it is. Last year's schedule is easier than this year's schedule. And so they will be more prepared. Doesn't mean they're going to win them all, but this won't be the first time they're in an we better come up with something. Like, I always go back to the 2002 team, which they were born and we've got to deal with this. And like every game was like that. So by the time you get to Miami double overtime, it's like
that whole season was brought to you by SpaghettiOs.
Yeah.
And by the time they got to the end of the season, they had been playing in those games all season long. Miami had like a close game against Boston College that year and a close game against Florida State, and that was kind of it. They just kind of killed everyone else. So that was not, and that was a one-game postseason at that point. So they didn't even have a conference championship game to prepare. It was just regular season BCS national title. So that you can certainly make a point that this will help prepare them better for the playoff. But also, don't lose 3 of the games because then you might not make the playoff.
One thing that Ryan, he continues to be asked about this, even though nothing has changed between the spring and now in terms of pace of play. Mm-hmm. I think people are just wanting a different answer.
Yeah.
To say, no, we're going to go faster. Like that's what, are you sure you still, and basically he said what we've said in terms of you can't say it didn't work in 2024 because the pace of play was essentially the same between the 2 years. It's like, you can't say it didn't work in 2024, but you also can't say it did work in 2025.
Right.
But what you can't do is, the easiest thing to do, and he said this about something else, the losses. The easiest thing to do is do nothing or change everything.
Yeah.
And instead, you've got to find what were the issues. And as he said in the spring, it's not about pace of play, it's not about tempo, it's about efficiency. And I think people are just like, no, it's about, we want to see faster. That's just seems like what the questions are. It's like, the answer's not going to change. They've not played a game yet. They have not, had 62 snaps and lost to where now they're like, we better move faster yet.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it's something where people have made up their mind that was the cause of the issue. And was it the cause of the issue? It may have been. I can't tell you it wasn't. But also, I don't think you can definitively say, hey, if they had gone at the exact same pace and Julian Sain hadn't thrown that pick six, or if Julian Sain's knee hadn't scraped the turf against Indiana, or if Jaden Fielding hadn't missed the field goal, you could play at the exact same pace and win the game. Now, we've gone through the whole game theory thing, and if you're a big favorite, you want to maximize your number of plays so you can build upon your incremental advantage in each. So I can certainly make the game theory argument for playing with a little more tempo, but they have won with this. They have lost with this. This is not necessarily the single driving factor.
Right.
It's certainly one potential piece of this, and I think Arthur Smith is probably going to come in and have his own thoughts on this, because
Dave said the same thing.
Yeah, he's done this at a different level. He has been in charge of not just running an offense but running full NFL teams, so he's certainly going to have his own views as well.
Last thing, Ryan Day mentioned a particular position group that he's definitely going to have his eye on.
I was there for this one
this season, and he talked about the running backs, because did not see Bo Jackson or Isaiah West in the spring, and he mentioned something that we've talked about, which is the freshman running backs, that the freshman 1,000-yard rushers. Like, he didn't go into detail, but he talked about J.K. Dobbins, outstanding as a freshman. Didn't want to call it a sophomore slump, but he was a much different back, 3 yards per carry different back. And what they can't have is for Bo Jackson and Isaiah West to have a similar drop-off. They need to pick it up. You can't go up, down, up. They need them this year to be cranking, and that's why I said I'm going to be watching that position.
Yeah, and that was a position that he talked about it being a little bit of a question in the spring and a question last summer. That was a position where he had questions there as well. I don't think they've got a definitive answer there. I think they have lots of potential answers there, and he went through, Bo, you have Isaiah, you've got Jacoby Jackson. He talked about Legend Bay. He mentioned Turbo Rogers. This is one of these things where we pay attention to the names he says and the order he says them in, because that's generally a little bit telling, and that was the order. Fourth name was Legend Bay. He went into a little more detail on Legend Bay later. Legend Bay obviously missed some time in the spring, healthy this summer, so that's no longer a concern. The quote was, "The talent is there for sure, you can't deny that," but he later said, well, there's more to it than just talent. Like, you can be talented, that's great, that doesn't get you on the field, that doesn't get you carries. It means you're in the conversation, but they need him to kind of do all the other stuff.
Yeah, and I wrote down the exact quote, but it was something to the effect he added, when he's got the ball, you're going to notice him. It was something to that effect.
There's no question that when you see the ball in his hands, he's going to stick out.
Yeah, and so I think that's exciting for everybody. So that's basically a wrap-up of Ryan Day. We will have much, much more. As I said, we talked with Jeremiah Smith, talked with Julian Saint, talked with Jalen McClain, talking with other coaches, Big Ten coaches. We are throwing a bunch of stuff in the Buckeye Weekly audio podcast side of some of our recaps and thoughts and some of the things that coaches are saying. Some of it is definitely related to Ohio State, so I would recommend, if you have not yet, check those out. If you're watching, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for those who have, and always continue to find us over at BuckeyeInsiders.com. Our time is not done here. We have one more day of this.
We have a lot more to go today before we get to tomorrow, but yes, we got a lot more.
And of course, we're throwing all kinds of stuff on the Buckeye Insiders message board, where you sign up now for the price of, Tom, what? A lousy chain store?
And that was true 5 years ago. Now, now, I mean, it's probably like 2/3 of a lousy chain store pizza.
For the price of a hot and ready and crazy bread. You can become a member now. So that will do it from here. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.